Okay, I'm working on this 2013 Hyundai Sonata, and basically the AC was working and now has quit working. And I had put some dye. You can get dye that's just in the can, like the Freon cans you can put in there. I put some of that in there, and we determined that it was leaking on this high pressure hose here, and I'll show you what that looks like. But anyways, the system at this point, there's nothing in there, so if you just have a small leak, you definitely want to take it and have it evacuated or verify the system's empty before you perform any sort of work on there. But this one doesn't have any in it. Okay, so this is the replacement line I got, and you just want to make sure you get a new get a really good brand. Whatever that you get, make sure that it's a good one or an OEM, because I have had issues with some cheaper ones. But this is said the discharge line, and I have seen these several times where they basically start leaking at these crimps. The hose gets old, the crimps, and they start wanting to leak, and that's where you're going to see the Freon with the dye that's going to be kind of like sprayed around this hose here, and I'll show you that in just a second. But this is what we're going to be putting back on here. You'll notice I had the vehicle on ramps. It's going to make it easier to get under here. Okay, so we got our black light, and I'm going to show you. They got glasses that come with this, but you can clearly see when you look along this hose, high pressure hose, if you can see that one down there, basically it's glowing right at these fittings. And if you just gotta run your black light along it, it will show up. And you don't really see it anywhere else. I mean, there's a little bit where we put it in there, but you shouldn't, if you you can also wipe this off so you kind of don't see it. But this is where you're more than likely going to have a leak, is on this high pressure, and it's kind of spraying out all along that hose there. Okay, first thing, because we're dealing with a hybrid, we're going to come back here in the trunk, and we're going to disconnect our fuse here. So just give that a pull up, and now it's safe to work on the vehicle. Okay, so I've already verified with my gauges that the system has no Freon in it. Now you can see right here we've got a 10mm, and we've also got one down underneath there, hence the reason we're gonna get under the car. But you can see it'll focus in, but we got it connected to the compressor. So we've got our 10mm here. We're going to go ahead and take this loose, and then we'll work on the lower down there. So we'll start taking this loose. Okay, once we got it loose, we're going to use a magnet to go down there and get it. Here we have it. Okay, we're just going to give it a firm lift up. And you can see that there's still quite a bit of dye in the system, so if there is any minor leaks after repairing this, they will show up. There's no need to add more dye. Okay, so we're down under the car, and the same thing, we've got the 10mm here, if we can get it into place. And we're going to try to, I need to get a shorter one. This is just, it's getting in the way here. Okay, so I just got a shorter one here. Okay, and again, you're going to have to pull firmly, and then we'll just bring the whole thing right out bottom here while we're at it. Okay, so here's a look at the old one. You can see they're the same, with the exception of this one's not curved because it hasn't been sitting in the car. But we're going to start with the upper up here first. See, they got these protective caps on them here. Comes with its own screw-on cap. Okay, we're going to just start by feeding this down in here before we remove the cap. Now the other thing, we've got some of this pad 46, and we're just going to put a little bit on this O-ring right here before we seal it down in place, or you could just put a little bit around the bore of that, but I'm just going to put a little bit around this here. It may drip a little bit, but that's okay. And I need to get my gloves back on here. But we want to try to minimize as much time of this being exposed to the air. Okay, so I'm going to use the magnet to get the 10mm nut started. We'll just keep that pushed down firmly. And snug it up. And just snug this by hand. It doesn't have to be like torqued. You just want to get it nice and snug. I'm just using a 3/8 ratchet and just kind of snugging it up nicely. You don't want to overdo it. Okay, and again, we're going to put a little oil on that O-ring there. Then we're going to have to kind of bend this to get it to go where we need it. Right. Okay, so we'll get our 10mm on here. I'm just going to push that straight while I'm snugging it down. Okay, I got my ratchet wrench here. The stud's a little bit too deep for my socket there. Right, so that's snug enough. Okay, so there we got our nice new hose. And I'll know if I'm going to have any issues out of these fittings, if it holds vacuum or not. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to do, is get our pump hooked up to it and see if it's going to hold vacuum. Okay, so I got our gauges here. I used to be able to get these as loaner tools at like AutoZone and parts stores. Don't know, because I haven't done that in a while, but used to be able to get all of this as a loaner tool, and you could take it back, get your money. So definitely check into that. So we're going to go ahead first thing and we got to get our yellow hose hooked up here. So we're just hooking this to our pump. Make sure that your oil is at the level it's supposed to be on your pump here. Next thing, we're going to get our blue gauge, hook it up on the low over here. Okay, so we just make sure that this is turned counterclockwise so the piston there's up. And we just lock it on with the coupling, make sure it's attached. And you can go ahead at that point, open it up, just as long as your gauge up here is closed. So these just stay closed clockwise until we get ready to start pumping. Okay, again, this has to be clockwise, and you also have to make sure that your hoses and stuff aren't leaking too, because you can get false readings. But just pull back on those, and they should lock on. Okay, we'll go ahead and open that one up, or turn it clockwise all the way down. Okay, so go ahead and kick our pump on here, start vacuuming. Okay, so we're going to come up to our gauges. Go ahead and open up this side. That's our low. And then we'll go ahead and open up the high side. And we're going to pull this down, you know, as far as we can. We usually get it down to below the 30. And we'll kick it off and make sure, you know, so we'll make sure the fittings are tight, everything's good, we don't have any leaks. And then we'll turn it off, turn off the pump, and then let it set for about 30 minutes and make sure that we're holding vacuum, because this Freon's kind of pricey now at about $9 a can, so definitely don't want to have to be doing this again. Okay, so if you can see that, you know, this side's pretty much all the way in against the needle. This side is down in between the 30 and where the P for the PSI. We're going to go ahead and shut off both sides. And we'll just go ahead and turn our pump off, and we'll keep an eye on it for about 30 minutes. And like I said, if this doesn't hold, there's no point in going any farther. You know, we figure out we either got a leak in one of my lines for my gauges, which is possible. You know, the fittings, you want to make sure you got good equipment to work with. But, you know, we shouldn't be losing any vacuum on this, or we got another leak, or we got a leak on our new line or something, you know. And like I said, with cheap fittings, AC lines I've had problems with them, but usually with Four Seasons and, you know, universal air conditioning, they're pretty good. And other than that, you know, getting an OEM if you can get one. Okay, now you should have a sticker over here. This will tell you how much your system's going to hold, and it's 550 grams. It says plus or minus, give or take 25 grams. So it comes out to about 19.4 ounces, and that's, you know, roughly going to be about a can and a little over a half. So you can weigh the cans out, or you can do like me and get a kind of a guesstimate with the PSI, and you're just kind of going by the fill of the can. As you can see, these are 12 ounces each. So we'll get, you know, around about a can and a half. And if, you know, I've got a gauge too, we'll watch the PSI, and then we'll put the temperature gauge in the vent. You know, we get it down around 40 degrees, and that's pretty good. Okay, before we proceed, we'll go ahead and get our fuse back in here, because we're going to have to get the car running here. Okay, like I said, it should be holding vacuum. You know, it may not be uncommon for it to move just a slight bit, you know, in case there's some sort of leak in the line there, but it should be holding vacuum on the system. Okay, and once we know we don't have any leaks, we're going to take our Freon, and it's just an ordinary can tap that punctures the other kind. This is a self-sealing, but just with the needle up, not down. We're just going to screw it on there. And all we do is basically screw this down once we get it attached until Freon starts coming out. It works just like it would on the other can. You screw it almost all the way down till you get some Freon coming out. So we're just going to continue to let it vacuum for about 30 minutes. Now I know that it's not leaking, get a good vacuum on it, and then we'll start putting our first can in. Okay, so we're just getting ready to hook this directly up to our can here. And we're going to go ahead and just, we'll get a little Freon in the line. We'll go up here and purge it. So we've got some Freon going in there. Okay, so first thing, we want to just purge your line there, get the air out. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, now we don't open up the red side, don't touch this side. We're going to open up. And with that vacuum, it will suck, or it should suck almost a full can into the system before we even have to crank the car up. We're just gonna let our can, and you can feel when this thing gets close to empty. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and crank the car. It's not feeling like it wants to take any more Freon into the system here. Okay, so we got this set on max AC, and the engine just kicked on, but regardless, it's going to run that compressor with the hybrid battery. But we got set on to our max AC, and we'll go ahead and start getting some more of this can in. You can see as it really sucked that pressure down as we got the compressor working there, and that's going to just continue to pull the rest of this can in, and we'll just gonna shake it. And said you can feel it start get really cold as it's emptying out. But mainly we're gonna get one can in. Keep an eye on the pressure, and we're gonna try to get a half of another can. Very important that you remember to purge the air each time. You can see it working its way in there as it's flowing through that sight glass. And ideally you want to have a vent thermometer. You know, they're about $6 or $7. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Still got a little left in the can here. It's gradually working its way through. Okay, so at this point, like, the can is frosted over, and I can feel that it's empty, and now it's like actually going back warm again. So I know I got this can completely emptied out. Okay, so I'm getting ready to change the can. We're going to go ahead and close this off. And then we'll just unscrew this and reattach our other can. Okay, so we got this valve up. We're just reattaching our new can. Remember, we only want to get half of this can. That's all we need. We're going to go ahead and get this opened up. Basically, just run your needle down and then back it off a little bit. And then go ahead and take it and purge your air out. Okay, with our air purge, we'll go ahead and open this back up, but we don't want to get too much. We want to get half of this can, and then we're going to stop. So I'm just going to be kind of looking at the pressure and going by the feel of the can here, because you can kind of feel it, but there are scales you can weigh it with. Or if you can find a 7 or 8 ounce can, that'd be perfect. And I know that I don't want this pressure to be much above 40. I want it to be okay, so I'm just going to keep working it in here until I feel like I've got enough. I'm not nowhere near half a can. It's actually going to take a little over this half a can. And I'm also watching my gauge here. So we're at about 125 on the high. We're up here around 42 on the low. Okay, this is where I've ended up, and we've got a little over the half a can, so we should have the proper amount in here. So what we're going to do is just we're going to back this off so we don't have any more Freon coming through, and we're going to open up this line and basically just suck what's left in this line loose here by opening this up. And we'll see how our gauge is doing inside. Okay, so I turned this down because it's really loud, but you can see that we are right at that 40, right at the top of that 40-degree mark, which is ideal. So we will drive it and see how it does. Obviously we'll check it, make sure we don't have any other leaks, and everything's still going to be holding and doing the same. That's pretty good right there. I'd like to see it down even lower, but so we got the proper amount in it, so we'll just see how it's going to do at this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and back off our counterclockwise both of our fittings here and disconnect these. Those are lower. At least we got the high pressure. We'll get our cap back on. I wish I had the low pressure cap. I'm going to have to locate one for that one. Okay, so we got this AC blowing nice and cold again. It's not really hot today. Probably didn't get up to 70, but it's definitely gonna help out. So anyways, it's not too bad of a job. Just, you know, you need some tools to, you know, vacuum it out and be able to get the system vacuumed down. Now if you don't have these tools, you just can't get them, can't get loaner tools, you know, at the very least, if you can figure out where your leak is and replace that part, that's going to save you, you know, a lot of money in labor costs. So you can at least get that replaced and take it somewhere and have the system charged back up. So anyways, that's going to do it for the video. You know, I'm going to keep an eye on it. Hopefully you don't have any leaks anywhere else here, but you know, they'll reveal themselves if we do with that dye in the system. So anyways, I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and I thank you for watching.